And we're live. Thank you so much, Umar and Sahar, for joining us. Super excited to hear about the Swivel story, how it started, what happened at the pandemic, and would love to touch on a few other topics, especially since we at Remote Base focus a lot on software engineers. We would also like to focus a lot on, talent, how do you acquire talent, and a bit about that. So yeah, would firstly love to hear a brief intro. So Umar is the senior engineering director at Swivel. Sahar is senior engineering manager at Swivel. But if you could like just share in like 2 minutes or 3 minutes your journey and how you ended up at Swivel, and then let's take it from there. So Umar, over to you.
Thank you very much, Qasim, for your kind words. And as you mentioned, my name is Omar Mekki. I'm Director of Engineering at Swivel. I've been a programmer for a bit over 18 years now, and the last 5 years have been all in management. So I'm longing for my coding days, but it is what it is. So my experience has been mostly in startups. I've been in, I think, 10 or 11 startups over my career. And for the past year and 9 months now, I've been with Swivel, going through this journey of a unicorn, if I may say that. So, yeah, this is about me. Over to you.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us, Umar. Sahar, if you could like just tell the
So
audience
thank
how
you.
it's
Thank you as well for being very generous host, especially for the past couple of days. Um, I've worked in programming and technology over the past 12 years of my life. I started in academia, and then the startup bug hit me at some point of time in like 10 years ago. And from there, I've been working in infrastructure and what I like to call configuration land ever since. So I primarily manage the infrastructure teams when it comes to like security, infrastructure, automation of them, and especially when it comes to stability and security. So I've been working into that land of configuration and machines for the past like 12 years, and over the past year and a half, I've been having the pleasure of being part of Swivel operating the same.
awesome. Sounds super exciting. And I think that's like the engineering dream, right? So one question before we dive into the journey is, what still makes you wake up in the morning? And you've been doing this for 12 years, 18 years. Um, why do you wake up in the morning, and what excites you still about software engineering? And Sahar, how about you take that one?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey, especially that I've been practically working with the same field over the past 12 years. Definitely, as someone working in infrastructure, it really excites me personally because I'm someone who sees every aspect of technology. When it comes to backend, data science, data engineering, flows of data, scheduling things, and even security, it's like a very broad field that's like the interconnection between every specific avenue of technology and computation. Over the past couple of years, what's been really exciting, even for me, more than technology, is enabling teams to be able to actually use these technologies, either building tools to enable developers to make their work faster, better, and more efficient, especially when it comes to automation. But the biggest challenge that has been really resonating for me, especially in Swivel, is how can we grow as an organization, both as technology and as people? Growing and when it comes to super organization with the crazy growth we're going with as, as an organization, and I think Omar will talk more about this. It's really fascinating to see how many diverse backgrounds we're working together with, and the kind of technical challenges that they notice. And from there, all of these optimizations keep me happy to wake up in the morning. Okay, this is an improvement we want to see, and how to enable our teams to work better.
Awesome. Perfect. That sounds amazing. Umar, so asking you like what we were discussing before we before we went live was, so what was the Swivel journey? I know you were not there in the beginning, but what are the stories you've heard? How did it start? And then would love to hear what happened post pandemic, because I think that's the time literally when you joined. Like as soon as you joined, there was the pandemic, like right
Yeah,
about that time. So
true.
let's start from the beginning. Just a brief story of stories you heard.
Yeah. So Swivel is a Cairo homegrown kind of company. It started by our founders, Mustafa Andil, Ahmed Sabah, and Mohammed Noor. And basically, they were just three guys just out of college, a little bit of experience here and there. Especially Mustafa has been in Kareem at that point, and he's by trade and education, he's a petroleum engineer. So he's completely way out of this field, either transportation or technology at that point. And back then, there was a problem in Egypt specifically, and it still is a problem, by the way. And this is why we're still here. Is that if you are looking for an affordable, safe, humane way to transit between 2 points in a day, especially in a big city like Cairo, there is not really a lot of solutions out there. At the same time, there was this huge opportunity of buses and transportation companies basically going defunct because of the whole tourism state and everything. It wasn't really going good. So this was an opportunity presenting itself. And this is where we started. And once this happened, we started seeing a lot of basically tangents across the world, not just about Egypt. It's not just about Cairo. It's about Cairo. It's about Nairobi in Kenya. It's about Islamabad in Pakistan. Every single market we've went through, we've seen a different side of that problem, and we found that okay, we can actually solve for all of those in a good way, hopefully. And surprisingly, there hasn't been a lot of players solving for the same problem. I guess this has to do with also most of the big players in the world are not actually in those markets, are not homegrown out of those countries, so they wouldn't relate kind of to the daily struggle. So you can imagine this has been an amazing journey since we started. One of the stories we were talking about is basically Sabah and Andil at one morning had to actually rent a bus, go and do their own like pick up customers, because basically drivers and customers back then at the very beginning kind of had this behavior of just not showing up. So now you have customers stranded out there, and they actually went and picked up customers and drove them to their destinations. But yeah, this is kind of the story of how we started. Now we're in 22 countries across the world, even in Europe now, we're expanding over there. Hopefully, very soon we'll be on all 6 continents. This is something we aspire for. And I'd have to say, given that you mentioned COVID specifically, although it's definitely a bad thing for us, it's definitely a bad thing across the world, but it has been a blessing in disguise for us as a business. Back in March, I think we went into complete shutdown. Of course, Egypt, Pakistan, even Kenya, we went into complete shutdown. And this was a perfect opportunity for us to kind of look back, okay, what do we need to optimize? What do we need to build to make our solution even more reliable for our customers and valuable for our markets? Because back then we were sure that mobility is specifically mass mobility is not really a luxury. It's not a commodity. It's not like just moving from point A to B once a week. It's something that people need to do on daily basis. They need to go to their works, they need to visit their families, go out, etc. So we were sure that this is going to come back. We weren't sure how it's going to come back, but it was very obvious for us that this is not something that will go away forever because of the pandemic. And this is exactly what we backed on, and actually it paid off. In the 3 months that most markets were on shutdown, we took that time to improve our product, build new products, expand our business into new avenues we didn't think about. It was kind of, for engineers specifically, kind of a breath of fresh air, because now you can do big changes to a production system without kind of the cost of affecting millions of users. This is kind of the mode we went in. And
Yeah.
thankfully, after that, we basically came back. Our market started refreshing again, and here we are.
Amazing. So you talk about new products and new avenues. So what are like some of the new products that Swivel has been working on that you can talk about publicly?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we are known for our B2C or business to consumer side of things, and specifically the intracity transportation. So people moving within the same city. But we also had a travel side of our business. We expanded on that. We wanted to expand a lot on that. As well as we wanted to offer our services to businesses. So imagine you at remote base, you want, of course, it doesn't make sense that you guys are remote and you want to move people between offices, but actually, if you think about most of the industries and businesses out there, there are people going from, let's say, factories to offices, etc., and you want to move to make this experience as seamless and reliable as possible. So we started offering our solutions also to businesses. Now businesses can use the data and the algos we created over that past 5 years or 4 years just to move their people without kind of worrying about the operations side of it. Even the buses, we also provide that for them. So business to business definitely was our biggest change in terms of what we do.
Yep, perfect. So adding on to that, but I'll throw this one at Sahar. So I think one of the biggest successes of Swivel and the reason it got product market fit was that the developed, not the developed countries, but the Western world had good public transport already available. However, countries like Pakistan and I'm sure Egypt did not have such good public transport or such a good public network. So do you think that is one of the reasons Swivel came out of Egypt and not out of Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so definitely, as Omar was mentioning, like regional understanding was key. We knew what people were facing as problems on their daily commutes. Even in Pakistan, we have like homegrown talents who understand what is happening on the ground. And from there, we know how people commute, how people go from point A to point B, to the extent of like we understood what was the digital gap here needed, just understanding of how to track the rides, to know when the bus is actually coming, to get a good quality service and make sure that people comfortably reach their destination. As a Korean who wants to commute, Cairo is really a huge city, and sometimes people feel that going for a student going to their university, it feels like going from city to city. Some commutes can take up to a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So from there, that local understanding really bridged the gap of what people actually need. And looking at like other companies, reaching product market fit is a very difficult challenge. And some companies would optimize for quality given a very difficult market to go through, or trying to fill a gap that never existed. And I feel that Swivel played that part of trying to fill a regional gap that no one was even looking at. People were mostly looking for individual commutes or people who wanted a high-end service to go to their destinations. But here we're trying to fill a commute gap. And from there, like product market fit came naturally. And I don't want that to sound a little bit arrogant, but maybe due to regional experiences that we have in each of the cities we're expanding on, especially for our retail or like our customers who want to go to their jobs and schools and universities every day, is what really drives the difference for our product.
Perfect. And one more thing that I was thinking, Sahar, that you like literally joined Swivel when everything was shutting down.
Yeah.
So how was that experience? What was it like from the inside? And why did you join like in the middle of the pandemic when everything was shutting down?
So for me, I'm someone who loves being at the office every day. I like the communal element of it. I love how I interact with people in the office. But for me, it was really challenging, especially for how Swivel would grow into this whole like strange period that we're all living in, while at the same time no one is co-located. So from the day I joined Swivel, I found there are really engaging online activities that everyone is involved with. People do like this online coffee breaks or like online movie clubs. This communal aspect inside the company itself really bridged that gap, especially for me, where I feel I needed to be always there, where this was no longer needed. I'm someone who like really hate staying at home and work. I like to see other people work, and I didn't feel that pain at all inside Swivel.
Yeah, but in the beginning, and when you joined Swivel, what was the environment like? Considering the fact, like, was there a lot of uncertainty because nobody knew that things would resume, when they would resume, how soon they would resume.
Yeah.
For all we knew, this could have gone for 5 years or 2 months. Nobody knew, right?
Yeah.
So, what was the environment like, and how did the founders tackle that situation and not let keep the team members engaged during that tough time, because you literally experienced that tough time with your own eyes.
So definitely, as the whole world, everyone was in this state of uncertainty. No one knew that COVID would be lasting this whole 2 year period, and I don't think even until now we don't know how long this will be staying with us. But I think everyone was really encouraging. Everyone was making sure that everyone stayed safe, and that period was like this downtime for us was a chance to take a step back and fix things and make things more organized, maybe prepare for what was coming. And gladly, we actually prepared for markets coming back. People are more accustomed to how to live with COVID during that time. And from there, different culture engagements that we have, either between all hands and discussions between people, all the technical discussions that we have, like for architectural design and for improving technical work, all of these activities kept a good vibe until we managed to find that certainty. So we were keeping our best foot forward, always thinking for the best to come, and gladly all of that came to fruition.
Perfect. Yeah, I think, and I'm glad, like, you got that time, because scaling products like Swivel can be hard, and that can be our segue into the next conversation. So, Umar, like, coming out of Egypt, so it's very easy to find talent in Silicon Valley. You literally throw a stone and it will hit somebody that is a software engineer, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody here has worked on products. So that's where I'm based as well right now. That's why I'm wearing like a hoodie, because it's cold here. But anyways, so software engineering here is, everybody has either worked for Facebook, Google, Netflix, or some sort of company. How do you at Swivel make sure that your products, uh, your software engineers, how do you, number one, find them, and then how do you train them, and then how do you make sure that your products are at par with Silicon Valley standards, as they say?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, it's not easy, to be honest. So one thing that most people don't understand or don't see is that there is a huge competition, especially after COVID, in terms of finding talent. Because today, like before COVID, it was basically if you're in Silicon Valley, you would be working in Silicon Valley, and that's it. But now remote has been kind of big all over the world. So now you have not only to compete with your local market, but you have to compete with Europe, you have to compete with Silicon Valley, etc. And good engineers are usually sought after all over the world. So what we set out from the beginning is to be this company where people would want to work in. They would feel that their careers would actually progress through it. They are not missing out on a big opportunity in Facebook or Google or any big player out there, but actually progressing their careers towards something very similar. I'm not going to say exactly the same, but basically similar to that experience you would get in Silicon Valley or one of the big companies out there in Europe. And the biggest thing about the region, and specifically not Egypt, but across this MENA and APAC region, this side, is that there is a lot of good talent, a lot of experienced engineers, people who are very passionate about it. And what was surprising for us as well is that a lot of those expats who went to the US and Silicon Valley, went to Europe and have been for some time, they are actually open to go back and start working again with their communities, basically to give back, to transfer this experience back. So we've been doing this strategy of basically wherever we find talent, we get them. So sometimes we would hire actually remotely, and we have engineers in 11 countries right now, in Europe, in Africa, and Middle East. And of course, we have our second biggest tech hub in Lahore, in PK. And the idea here is, even if we can't get those experienced talents from Silicon Valley or Europe into the local market itself, we would have them part of the team so they can actually transfer that experience to their teams over here, and hopefully we leverage the whole team all together. Now, the way we do this is we have what we call a growth framework. I know this is not something that is unfamiliar, especially in Silicon Valley or in more developed markets. But this growth framework is our attempt of basically clearing a path for all our engineers to understand what they need to grow into, how they can grow within Swivel. And this is also our Bible for hiring. So basically what we do is we look at this growth framework. Everybody is different. So we try and place engineers we're hiring on that growth framework to understand their level. And we transparently tell them where we see some gaps, where we see some opportunities. We don't even call them gaps. We call them kind of growth opportunities. And we try as much as possible to help them in that. This is actually the management path in engineering. Its number one priority is people, and of course with people comes leadership, coaching, career growth, etc. So my job is to make sure that basically engineers are growing in their careers, they are learning, they find what they need to progress their careers. Same with Sahir and etc. The whole engineering management track is not about getting just output out of the engineering organization. It's also about growing this team and making them basically uh, like enabling them to do the best they want to do in their careers. It's not about just output. We want them to also be feeling that they are building something that has a lot of impact on the ground, and they are getting a lot of value out of that as well. So yeah, this has been basically the philosophy and the challenge so far. As I mentioned, we started out of Cairo. This is probably our biggest tech hub today, but very soon, once we started operations in PK, we found that we can actually also do the same thing we did in Cairo, in Lahore and in Pakistan specifically. So today we have actually a smaller team over there. We're hiring, I think, over 50 positions over there, and it has been quite a journey. Like having that office and that exposure to a new culture completely. To most of us, we don't interact that much, or we haven't been interacting that much with engineers outside of the Pan Arab region. Basically, it actually became kind of a good surprise for us all. The synergies, the talent, the expertise is just amazing, and this is why we took a decision. Okay, we need to expand this even further than what we planned for. So yeah, this is basically how we're looking at it, and definitely it's still a challenge to find talent. Competition is fierce, but I think we're getting there. We're becoming this company where people would actually feel comfortable working with, and at the same time feel that they are growing without missing out on big opportunities out there in Silicon Valley or Europe.
Perfect. And talking about opportunities in, Lahore, and because, our focus is primarily right now in Pakistan. So, engineers, software engineers that are watching this right now and that will watch this later on, what does it look like working at Swivel? Like, is the culture totally remote? Do they have to come into the office? Is it like a 9 to 5 job? What is it like?
So I'll say we're a bit in a hybrid state. So we're remote friendly. This is for sure. As you can see, I'm actually taking this call from my room over here, and same with Sahir. So the philosophy we're doing right now is that our offices are kind of co-working spaces. Not everyone, and this is something we found out very quickly, not everyone actually prefers to work from home. Some people, like Sahir, for example, they prefer to go into that space and to commute and basically and meet other engineers around. So we made sure to cater for this. If you are an engineer like myself who prefers or feels more productive working from home, you would be able to do that comfortably. And if you are someone who wants to actually work from an office, you can still do that. Of course, this comes with a challenge of making sure that remote works in that setup. So our offices are set up in that way that you can still work with someone who's not in the office, and it's really productive. So to answer your question directly, it's up to you as an engineer. Once you join, you can choose to come to the office. Some of our engineers actually prefer to come twice a week into the office and take the rest out of their homes. Or if you want to come every day, nobody will tell you, okay, don't come to the office. Actually, it's very useful and kind of an out like a an outburst of energy sometimes. This is given that whole lockdown situation and more from home situation kinds of disconnects you. So it's perfectly up to you.
Perfect. And that perfectly, it's up to the engineers to work. One more thing, so I'd like to ask Sahar is like, I don't know if you mind sharing your tech stack, but what kind of engineering roles are you looking for? So if there's an engineer in Lahore, or even Karachi or Islamabad. Firstly, can engineers from Karachi or Islamabad apply? Are you making teams there? And if not, and if you're focusing on Lahore right now, then what tech stacks do they need to be proficient in? If you could highlight like two, three major job openings you have, Merge Stack, React, Node, whatever it is, maybe it would be helpful.
So definitely for different perspectives, like for backend engineers, we're looking for Node and Golang engineers. For iOS engineers, we're looking for Swift engineers. For Android, we're looking for Kotlin engineers. For infrastructure, we're looking for people proficient in like containerized environments and cloud native environments in specific. But first and foremost, in Sliver, we're looking for talented problem solvers and good engineers first and foremost. And from there, I know a preference with some of the tech stacks I mentioned is present, but a good problem solving mindset and a good engineer always comes first. And at top of that, a good culture fit where like people who are open to lots of discussions, lots of being challenged into their design patterns and lots of understanding of deep technical challenging problems. This is what drives our positions first and foremost. Tech stacks are important, but in our general mindset, this comes second.
Yep, and that also like literally directs me to the next question. So if tech, when you're hiring, are you hiring for potential? Are you hiring for skill set? Umar talked about the gross framework. If you could tell us a little bit about what it is, and if somebody's like, let's say, has 6 months or 1 year of experience, but is super talented and has the potential to become the best engineer there is, would you like prefer that person, or would you prefer somebody that has 6, 7, or 8 years of experience? So how do you decide when you're hiring?
So when thinking about the growth framework, it's something that's even parts of it are publicly shareable online. And it's something that we consider like a growth plan for any engineer with the sort of mindset. It's not specific to only technological elements. There are elements when it comes to communication, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to basically taking initiative. So there are different elements that shape that well-rounded engineer. It's not only about these techniques. And definitely, it's a great path of understanding how a person's potential can be improved and enhanced. From there, potential is definitely important in the growth path of any engineer. And for there, we're definitely hiring for potential. Maybe someone would start with a more what someone would call a more junior position, but they would find themselves that they're growing really quickly within Swivel. And this is really common for what is commonly known as like high potential talent, that they are naturally maybe starting their lives, but they find that their growth path moves on very, very quickly. And this is something that we're really proud of, that we allow that for people, that they're not bound with like specific cycles or specific bureaucratic constraints. What is most important for us is that people develop and grow it through their learning opportunities.
Perfect. And these people that you hire, let's say if you hire in Lahore, are they working directly? Are they working as a team in Lahore, or are they like working as part of different teams that are based out of Egypt or somewhere else in the world? So is it like a completely distributed structure, or is it more like you have one team in Lahore, one team in Egypt? How does that work?
Yeah. So a decision we took collectively together is not to have these like geographically based teams. It's so by design because the problems that we're working with, as we've seen, are like maybe the same team with more problems that need to support multiple locations. So the focus for us as engineers is not geographically based problems, rather than the engineering problems themselves and tackling and building such products that may need contributions from different geographies. So how we're seeing is that we have squads that have like multiple geographies, different perspectives. So we're focusing that our teams and our organizational structure is focused on the problems rather than geographies.
Perfect, perfect. And Umar, what do you look for when I know you talked about the growth framework, but if somebody, what advice would you have for somebody wanting to apply at Swivel, and how can they apply?
Yeah. So I'd say the number one thing that we look for, and definitely my advice is hungry people. Like this is what I would say is the best trait we've seen. People who continuously learn, who are continuously on their toes, just wanting to get more into technology, wanting to be up to date, wanting to be kind of the greatest software engineers they can be. This is the one thing that actually kind of surprises us when we sit with someone. It's not about the skill set, as Seher mentioned. We believe skill can be basically growing, can be improved, etc. But that potential and that hunger to learn and to be the greatest they can be, this is actually what surprises us most. Now, just to answer that question on how they can apply, so we have our jobs board. It's at crafts.swivel.com. And this is where you can see all our open positions, and you can just simply apply from there, and we will get right away in contact with you.
Perfect. I'm just gonna switch my location because the TV started speaking up.
Nice.
But anyway, so what's next for Swivel? Like you
Yeah.
don't know when the pandemic's gonna end. You don't know if bus rides are gonna go up or are they gonna go down. How do you see the future of Swivel?
So, of course, not, I can't share everything, but I'll tell you, just building on what we were talking previously, transportation is not a problem that is going away anytime at all. Like it will just evolve from here. Even with the pandemic, people need to move. This is our human nature. So, and we haven't really scratched the surface in terms of solving this effectively and efficiently. It's still a long way, and I'm sure most of us are technical here. So this is basically the traveling salesman problem. It's unsolvable. It's by definition a very hard problem to solve. So we're still scratching the surface, and this is our kind of passion, is to find and approximate a solution as much as possible. So from here on forward, what we're trying to build is the operating system of transportation and mobility across the world. It's not just about daily commute or travel. We want to be part of the mobility of everyone across the world. As I mentioned, we are aspiring for being on 6 continents, and with each geography and each market, I'd say with even each community we enter, we find new set of problems to solve. Human beings are truly astounding, and when they become in communities, you can just see a lot of things that you probably can't see in your own country or even in your own region, and then it just starts bringing on new ideas and new problem statements that you would like to actually solve for. So from here on, Swivel is aspiring to be that operating system, and this is what excites us every day.
Amazing, amazing. Sahar, I know the topic slightly changed, but do you wanna add something to the last comment that Umar was making?
Yeah. So I want to circle back to this whole topic of like how can people grow and find opportunities in Swivel. A very important piece of advice that I find challenging when talking to engineers in their early discussions is that I feel that I'm talking to the textbook rather than I'm talking to the person. So the biggest advice, especially when we're looking for geeky people, just talk by your own language rather than the textbook. This is like the primary piece of advice I would give everyone.
Perfect, perfect. So before we, get into another topic, how about we answer some of the live questions we're getting?
Sure.
I'll start off with some YouTube questions. So I think you've slightly answered this, but Syed Ali Raza says, what challenges were faced by Swivel in COVID and how engineering and infrastructure team worked on addressing them? Um, Whoever wants to take this one.
So yeah, So specifically for infrastructure, when we were first working on infrastructure, obviously given lockdowns and everything, we had to scale everything down. And as we're seeing now things coming back up to scale, cost was a very big challenge. Um, from there, we were like building lots of automation tools that can dynamically change that perspective automatically given the inputs that we're getting, and even to the extent that we went into building scaling solutions that would be reading input from what the marketing team is working on. So instead of like being reactive to our traffic, we're trying to be a little bit more proactive towards it.
Perfect. So Muazzam Hussain from on Facebook is asking, do you operate your own vehicles?
No, so actually we're a two-sided marketplace. What that means is that customers use us as a channel to connect with drivers with their own vehicles. So we don't own the buses and we don't operate it. We just provide the technology underlying.
Then how? So I have a follow-up question. Then how do you
Please.
maintain quality? Because it can vary so much from one owner to the other.
Definitely. So we have I would say, a rigorous training and onboarding exercise that our city teams actually take and do religiously with all our drivers coming. So we do background checks, of course, for safety and ensuring that those captains are going to provide you the safest service possible. And we also do train our captains on how to deal with different situations, how to provide quality service across. Of course, from time to time, there are bad players in the system, but we also have, I think, a very good feedback mechanism where we can identify those very quickly and hence improve our quality overall.
Perfect. And what would you say to like somebody who wants to? Do you get people that want to start, uh, leasing buses to put them on swivel? And is there any sort of requirements for that? I don't know if you will be the
Yeah.
right person to answer this if you're leading the engineering.
Yeah, so it might be a bit hard for me to answer specifically for the details, but actually, my advice would be to just reach out to our commercial team in Islamabad, Karachi, or Lahore, and just we have over there our training teams and captain acquisition team. So just reach out to them, and they would give you all the details and what you need to do and requirements and everything. I think even we do some work in helping people even connect them to suppliers who they could lease buses from, etc. So just reach out to your city team, and probably they will be able to help.
Perfect. Another question from Hamza Arshad, more like a statement, but I'll turn it into a question is, carpooling services are definitely something that Swivel should be trying. Um,
Yeah.
is that something on the agenda?
So if you are in Cairo, you would have seen that already. We do have carpooling, not in the traditional sense. It's still under our kind of way of model of solution, where you would just ride sedans rather than buses, big buses. So it's in experimentation. Definitely, once it's ready for bigger markets, we'll launch it over there as well.
Okay, perfect. And Hamza Arshad also asks, for cities that already have a very good public transport network, how does Swivel change its approach to marketing as compared to cities like Lahore or Karachi, where transport system is burdened?
Yeah. So you would be surprised, even with cities' public transportation networks, it's still expensive. So it's still not really the choice of the public, basically. So while it might not be ubiquitous across all those developed markets, but some markets actually do require a better solution, a cheaper solution that is more reliable. But I would say the biggest marketing shift that we do is that now it becomes kind of a business to business and travel service value proposition rather than a commute value proposition. But still, we have seen countries that have amazing public transportation systems, but it's still very expensive for someone to take it on daily basis. So there is room for improvement over there.
Perfect, perfect. Sahil, how about you take this one? So, So there are a bunch of questions. How do you encourage your engineers to mentor new slash junior positions to grow skill wise?
So if we circle back to this, and I feel you sound like a broken record. So part of our own growth framework is that this is part of the expectation for engineers as they grow, especially for like more senior positions. They need to grow as mentors and supporters for their fellow engineers. And even as part of our onboarding process, each engineer would have like an engineering buddy next to them that would support them during their first few months to make sure that they understand the Swivel technical language. So as with any company, especially at our scale grows, there are technical details that would be very Swivel specific, and the need for that mentorship and experience is necessary.
Perfect. This is an interesting question that I would also like to know. So Muhammad Mubashirullah Durrani says, how do you calculate the point where the bus route is profitable?
So yeah, that's a very tricky one, and given that we're like a marketplace-oriented system, we have lots of. And I was actually when I first joined Swivel, I was very surprised at how data-driven and analytical everyone is, even to the extent of the most front-facing operational person who deals with captains on a daily basis. They're very like SQL proficient that they do their own analytics when it comes to day-to-day use. From there, even though this sounds like crazy, and internally we kind of like discuss it a lot, optimization when it comes to profitability of buses is a very hot topic. And I know given like different ride hailing companies have been talking about what is their path to profitability. I think our business as someone who's operating in mass transit makes the problem itself a little bit different. Unlike sedans where like we're talking about individual people riding, here making sure that we smartly position our stations and discovering them, which is actually very relevant to the hackathon as one of its problems. How can we make people able to discover these stations? And in the hindsight of that marketplace, part of it is to optimize that this bus is properly utilized.
Yep. It's a really difficult problem to solve as well, given the complexity, thousands of routes, thousands of, demand, supply, then routes, and then
Yeah.
calculating profitability on top
But
of that.
circling back to what we do in Swivel, we have like a very strong set of R&D engineers who work on this problem on a daily basis. So we can probably say that some of our routes are profitable, especially in cities where we have now that domain expertise. So cities like Karachi, Lahore, and Cairo, we have found like algorithms and ways to design the network in a way to make some of our routes to reach profitability.
So, does Swivel make the routes, or do the bus owners make the routes?
It's a combination of both. So as a marketplace, we are a company that serves two clients, the captains and our own customers. So finding that delicate balance so it will be profitable for both entities, for the customer for to have an affordable ride, and for the captains to earn a good living out of it is really important for us. So profitability here is more of a two-sided factor for us, and input is taken from both.
Perfect, makes sense. So we have a bunch of other really interesting questions. So I just read somewhere. So what different problems does Swivel face in Pakistan as compared to other regions? And Umar, maybe you could take that one.
Yeah. So I'd say Pakistan, especially in Islamabad, it was different in terms of how people want to use the service and how people move along the cities. So one challenge that we faced was basically that this bus, it's not just one stop. Like I would ride the bus for a couple of stops and then I want to hop off. And this actually drove our strategy and our product in a completely different way. Even across, we had the same model happen in Alexandria, and this is where kind of cities you can think of them as living entities. They are not really one solution fits all. It's cities themselves, even within the same country, would have different expectations of the service than each other. So I'd say this was the biggest challenge we faced first in terms of our service, is that people want to use our service differently. How can we basically accommodate for that? And this is what we did actually in the first couple of months after we launched in PK, is basically accommodating that need into our product without affecting our original product that is working elsewhere.
Awesome, awesome. Sir, maybe you could take the next one. Mohammed Qasim, that's my name by the way. Asks how engineering teams collaborate with other teams like design team and product team.
Yeah, so how we're structuring teams is that like product and design and engineering are part of the same squad. So they operate in such a way that they have an objective to reach in each of their cycles, either a KPI or an objective that they want to make the product improve with. So for example, if we are dealing with how we are dealing with like customer tickets and how we're optimizing our support system, how to improve our response times and how to improve the satisfaction of customers. From there, they are collaborating together on the specific problems either each quarter or each year and try to solve these problems together. So they're not as different entities as like classically thought. They are more of like a collaborative team solving problems together.
Perfect, perfect. I think that answers it. A few comments. HM95 says absolutely love Swivel's branding. So yeah, like kudos to your your design team. They've done a brilliant job with the branding. Um, so we have Swivel has a great aim of revolutionizing Pakistani startup ecosystem. So I'm just going through the comments. We've already answered this. What do you look for when hiring engineers? So I think uh, so. I have one more question from Masan Naveed. There's often this discussion that software engineers and managers don't agree with each other. Wi- does that and that hampers developers? How true is that?
So I'd say it's true in other companies, not at Swim. So as I mentioned earlier, like so engineering managers are focused on three pillars: people, process, product, in that order. So their number one objective is to make sure that their direct team is not hampered in any way. They are able to do the best they are able to, basically. They are not blocked on anything. And this is like you would find most of the time managers spend is in one-on-ones with their direct team members. It's not in micromanaging what they are building or just doing actually writing code. It's about people. It's a people role, 100%. So I wouldn't say it's the case for us at Swivel that managers are hampering people, engineers. Actually, we want to listen to our engineers, and this is, funnily enough, it was an internal discussion last week that as a manager, you want to hear your smartest engineers and you want to get their input and the feedback and to actually enable this. So yeah, it might be the case in some other organizations, but not at Swivel, I would say.
Awesome. So I have one more question on Slack. Is like, does Swivel provide opportunities to move from Pakistan to let's say Cairo or any other place?
So this is definitely something
So
is something.
yeah.
Sorry. So this is definitely something
Go
we're
ahead, go ahead.
considering. Yeah, so this is definitely something we're considering. So yeah, if the core thing is finding the right talent, the whole notion of location and preference is something we're very open to.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think we have a lot more questions, but I think that will be it for the question answer session. We're already at 50 minutes. Umar, any last words? Anything you'd like to say? To the audience, which is primarily software engineers, and then Sahir, I'll ask the same
Yeah.
question to you.
So I would love to see you guys like you are such an amazing community that that is just that far away from shining. And believe me, everyone is looking after for you. We want to see you working with us at Swivel. We want to see you working on our toughest challenges. So I'd love to engage with all of you. If you guys are looking in the market or for new opportunities, we'd love to have you. And this is kind of our focus actually have been for this year is to grow our talent outreach in Pakistan. So we'd love to get your feedback, what we can do better, how can we enable you more. Also, we'd love to have you part of the team. That's actually something that we'd love to grow with. So yeah, it's been an amazing experience so far with PK in general and specifically Hackfest by Remote Base. So we'd love to keep this going and keep engaging with you guys.
Awesome, and it's a pleasure having Swivel.
Likewise.
And thank you for Umar helping everybody out in the channel. So if anybody wants to reach out to Umar, they can.
No, it's
Even if you're looking to join Swivel, feel free to reach out to Umar. He's on our Slack channels. Sahar, any last words?
Yeah, so maybe adding to what Omar was saying, Swivel is a company that basically thrived in finding potential in developing markets. And I think as engineering, we believe the same. We every day we're very happy and honored to be working with our engineering teams, which might be from different perspectives, a little bit harder to find. But definitely I'm having conversations with regions that would be a little bit more proud of their technical prowess, that are much less engaging and capable versus what we have with our team that are basically homegrown. And here home is basically for me PK and Egypt. It's like the two places that feel closer to my heart than anywhere else. So yeah, engineers in every developing region, we're looking for you. We'll hunt you down to find you to join our great team.
Awesome. Perfect. So thank you so much, Umar and Sahar. It's a pleasure having you for the Hackfest and pleasure having this discussion. I can guarantee I learned a lot throughout this, 1 hour of discussion. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Qasim, for having us, and the pleasure is all ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you everyone that has joined us. Take care. Bye.